Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about net zero, what it is, the pros and cons of it, and if it's worth bankrupting the country for. If you like this sort of videos, please do like, subscribe, feel free to add a comment and go ahead and watch my other videos. Anything to feed the algorithm to get this channel growing. Otherwise, let's get into it. So, what is net zero? Net zero is a country's ability to produce its energy without emitting any additional carbon. The reason for that is there's been a lot of talk in recent years saying how climate change is a result of humanity's energy production and we need to stop it, otherwise we're either going to burn to death or freeze to death. They haven't decided. Personally, I think that's a bit of nonsense. The world's been around for, I don't know, millions of years. It's had ice ages, it's had heat waves, it's had all sorts without human industry contributing to it. Do we contribute to it? Probably. To the extent that all the eco-nutters say we do? Probably not. There we go. It's really hard to tell though, because in the UK, we've got this thing called the UK Met Office, Meteorologist Office. They are the ones who provide weather reports, weather information for us. Now, they have 302 weather stations that report in data to do with that stuff. 103 of those have apparently been out of action for the last 10 or so years, but are still providing data. So essentially, the Met Office, who are a very big net sort of climate change supporters, as in they're saying that we're doing it, well, it might be the fact that they're actually misleading people and lying. So it's really hard to kind of say, yeah, there is climate change when people like that are lying to you. So that's the first thing. The second thing then, about net zero. So let's say, for example, the United Kingdom becomes net zero. It wouldn't make that much difference because according to Grok, the UK is about the world's carbon emissions is about 1% of it. So even if the United Kingdom managed to get it all sorted and say, right, no more carbon emissions, it would make no difference whatsoever. Even then, countries like China are building coal power stations like it's going out of style. So they're constantly increasing their carbon emissions. So even if we got down to our 0%, it's going to be completely offset by what they're doing. So is there any point in doing it? Not really from a climate change point of view. Okay. So what we're going to look at next is actually the costs of energy in the United Kingdom and sort of the production means of it. Now, before I do that, I'm going to play this short video of Ed Miliband on Sky News. Now, for those who don't know who Ed Miliband is, he used to be the leader of opposition for the Labour Party when David Cameron was Prime Minister. He didn't do well, and it really went downhill for him when people found out he couldn't eat a bacon sandwich. He just can't do it. Google it. Ed Miliband bacon sandwich. It's hilarious. He's now the Energy Minister of the United Kingdom. So he's in charge of our energy policies and what we're doing. He's a massive net zero nut job. So we're going to watch a quick video of him on Sky News talking about energy. And you can really see how he's a few brain cells short of what you'd expect.
Energy companies in this country are taxed at 78% on energy profits. That pushes up prices too.
No, that's wrong. Look,
it's not 78%?
It is 78%, but it's not incredible.
Whereas obviously regular corporate tax is 25%.
It's really important to make this point. Oil and gas is set, the price of oil and gas is set on the international market. The reason why...
That's the raw commodity price, in the same way that the prices of batteries is set on the raw, the raw commodity price.
It's not set by the tax rate on UK companies, is what I'm saying. It's set by the global price. You see,
I understand that, but you're saying that tax rates don't impact pricing?
I'm saying that in relation to oil and gas, they don't, because the truth is that the price for our oil and gas is set internationally. And let me explain. Let me just, if you just let me make the point. Why did prices go through the roof when Russia invaded Ukraine? Right, well, our prices went through the roof, even though we imported a very small amount from Russia. That's because whether the gas was coming from the North Sea or internationally, it was priced on the international market. That's why we're in the grip of fossil fuel markets controlled by others, petrostates, data. And that wasn't about the UK tax rate. The UK tax rate could have been cut higher, and it wouldn't have made an impact.
That's a separate point.
Yeah.
The floating price of commodities is a legitimate but separate point. Another point for why this country has unbelievably high energy prices is that we tax our energy companies.
No, you're wrong. I'm really sorry, but you're wrong about that because the price is set internationally. I'm really sorry, but that's not correct.
OK, well, let's put commodities aside. If you increase taxes on supermarkets to 78%...
It depends whether it's...
If you increase taxes on supermarkets to 78%, what would happen to the price of food?
It depends.
What would happen to the price of food?
It depends whether it's a domestic market where the price is set domestically.
Depend. This is a globally unquestionable factor about economics. You're right that your point also applies. You can't flat...
Right, OK, that sounds cut. But basically, Ed Miliband doesn't know the difference between a lot of things. So Ed Miliband's idea is, because everyone pays for energy globally for the same amount, that's what leads to the price of it. As he just said, energy companies in the UK are charged 78% on this. Now, as you can imagine then, if the company's getting charged 78% and they need to make a profit to obviously pay for running of the business, they're going to have to increase prices. So, but he can't get that. So, the next thing I'm going to show you is a little table, and please bear in what he just said in mind. So, this is a table I got from Grok. Essentially, I asked it to provide the types of energy used in the United Kingdom, the percentage of the UK's use, the cost per household per megawatt for a UK household, then a global cost for another household, and then the percentage of domestic production versus import. So as you can see here, we've got all the different types. We'll just go from one at a time. So firstly, we've got wind. Now, the percentage of use, it says 28%. It did give me a little caveat though. This fluctuates. Sometimes it's much higher, sometimes it can be a bit lower, because it just depends on how often the wind blows. Now, the first problem with wind is if the wind's not blowing, you can't use it. So you're going to have to use something else to substitute for that. Also, if the wind is blowing too much, you can't use it. So for anyone who's on British Gas like me, you may be invited to what they call peak save green energy events, something like that, where essentially randomly for like 2 hours at a time, if you use the energy in those 2 hours, you get 50% off. The reason they do that is because the wind's blowing very hard. If they don't use all the energy, they don't have the battery capacity to store it. Great, isn't it? So basically, use it or lose it. So you randomly, on a Tuesday afternoon, you're going to have to do your washing then, because that's when the energy is available. Not that great, is it? Mind you, cost per household is £45 to £60. Globally, 28 to 76. So, yeah. And 100% that's domestic. So natural gas, about 27% of the UK use, between £70 to £100 per megawatt. Rest of the world, about £60. And again, as you just heard from Ed Miliband, a lot of that price is going to be because of the taxation on the energy companies and the fact that 65% of that is being imported into the UK. Now, we do have natural gas available in the United Kingdom. We've got like shale gas, and you've got like, I believe there's reserves in the North Sea. But this Labour government doesn't actually want to use that, because part of net zero means if we don't actually produce it ourselves, we're green. But if someone else produces it, they're the ones who are causing carbon emissions, not us. But of course, the first argument in that logic is, well, carbon emissions are meant to be global. So if you're just moving the emission somewhere else, you're not actually being net zero. You're just moving it somewhere. But that's neither here nor there. Biomass. Now, if people don't know what biomass is, this is like wood pellets that you could burn, and also poo-poo. So you can burn poo-poo and make energy out of it. So that's about 11% of our actual production. That's £100 to £120 per megawatt. Rest of the world says the mean price is £46 per megawatt, and 90% of that is imported. So as you can see in that table, one of the most expensive forms of energy, we're using about 11% of it for our national output, and 90% that's imported. Now, I know we've got a lot more people in this country due to mass migration, and they all got to poop. So I don't understand why we can't burn their poop and make energy out of it, but that's me. Nuclear. So nuclear, one of the safest forms of energy, about 15% of the UK use, 60 to 120 pounds per megawatt. Globally, it's mean as 137, so we're actually getting it cheaper than worldwide. And 100% of that is domestic production. However, we do have to import like uranium enriched uranium, yeah, to do it. Now, the thing about nuclear is a lot of people give it a bad name because obviously like Chernobyl and other things. Honestly, it is really safe if done properly. And about 15 years ago, Nick Clegg, who was David Cameron's salad boy, he said there's no point building nuclear because it would take like 10 to 15 years to do. It's been 10 to 15 years, Nick, and we would really use some nuclear right now, but there you go. Net electricity imports, about 12%. Because we're importing it, it doesn't really give much information. But we do import energy from like Norway, electricity, big cables underwater. But the problem with that is they're producing electricity thanks to what they do in the North Sea. So we've got the exact same availability as them, but we just don't use it. But hey, instead we're just going to pay extra for it. So there you go. Solar, 6%, 35 to 45 pounds. That's actually the cheapest on this table. And that's the mean price, about 44 pounds globally. So we're actually getting it a little bit cheaper than them. And that's 100% domestic as well. Hydro, 2%, 40 to 60 pounds. Around the same globally. That's done domestic. And last but not least, coal. Coal is sometimes it's just there as a little bit of a filler. That's why it's such a low percentage. However, the cost of it is the most expensive. It's over £150 per megawatt, and it's much cheaper globally. So if you can recall, we used to have coal mines. We shut them down due to the trade unions and Maggie Thatcher. But if we just kept one open, like now, we wouldn't have to import it at the highest cost of any energy there is. So there we are. So I'm hoping that little table is a nice little educational tool for you to realise how much of our energy actually comes from which sources. Interesting thing to see on this table is that the renewables, so that's wind, solar and hydro, are actually the cheapest out of all of them. So, forgetting net zero, forgetting climate change, if we could actually make more use of solar, hydro and wind, we'd actually have cheaper energy. That's it. Now, of course, these are renewables, so the wind doesn't always blow, the sun doesn't always shine. The water does always move, though, so that's something we've got to look at. So if we actually could do more with renewables, I wouldn't say no to it. But, on to my next point. When it comes to wind turbines, we've got a bit of a problem here. So, wind turbines are made predominantly in China. And as you know, China are using fossil fuels to produce their energy. So first of all, they're not carbon neutral. Second thing is, we bring them over on big ships, causing more carbon emissions. We don't use them in the middle of people's views and things, or in the middle of the water where everyone can see. So they're a bit of an eyesore, blight. And then once we're done with them, we can't actually dispose of them because of the blended composition of making a wind turbine blade. You can't just like burn it or smelt it down because of all the chemicals that are in it. So what do? You stick them in landfills. So again, very eco-friendly. So apparently the European Union from the 1st of January 2026 are putting a landfill ban on wind turbines. So if companies aren't able to dispose of them by sticking them in holes in the ground, it's going to cost more money for them to actually break up the material and put them to other use. And of course, that cost is going to get passed down to the consumer. So, something else to look forward to. Now, when it comes to solar panels, you see them on people's houses and stuff, but now you're getting a lot of times people are putting solar panels in farm fields because it's a big bit of space. You can put a lot down there. There's one near me down the road actually. The problem with that is we don't need energy to live. We need energy for our standard of living, which is, I'm not going to argue with that, but you can't eat energy. If you try and eat a battery, it's not going to go too well for you. What we need to eat is food. So, it seems a bit silly to replace our food productivity with energy productivity, especially when we're getting so many more mouths to feed in the United Kingdom. What we're going to do is just keep importing it all. Okay, there's an idea. However, Elon Musk also posted this thing on Twitter, X, sorry, about China and the US's change in energy production in recent years. So it's saying change in electricity generation in the last 12 months versus the prior 12 months. So it's not actually their output; it's just their change in generation. So as you can see, China they produce less in coal and hydro, but a lot more in wind and solar. US, they're doing more in coal, bit more in wind and solar, but essentially China is ramping up its solar energy production. They're not being net zero friendly, they just want more energy. Why can't we do the same thing? So, just as a little summary then, in terms of net zero, I'm not one of these little eco nut jobs who don't wash my hair. I don't have enough to wash. But from what I've read and from the research I've done making this video, I can see a real valid argument for having more renewables purely because of the cost per unit. It is lower than all the others. So if we were 100% renewable, we'd have lower energy bills, hopefully. That's the idea. The cons of it, however, is that the UK is not always sunny. And yeah, we do have wind, but it's intermittent. So we are going to need to have other forms of energy to substitute it for that. So we can't go completely net zero. We can't just switch to renewables because our infrastructure isn't built for it. That being said, we clearly need to improve our sort of battery storage, because when we've got all this wind energy and we can't even use it, then it was just a waste of money. So that's it in a nutshell. I hope you've enjoyed this video. It's been a bit of an analytical review of what actual energy is produced in the UK and obviously the cost of it. We're getting charged more than everybody else. That might just be because of the energy tariffs that our government's putting on them. So if we get rid of those, we can actually produce more energy, have a cheaper cost of living, and actually get more businesses investing in the United Kingdom. Because I don't know if you're aware of it, there's a lot of businesses at the moment who are very energy dependent on things like AI. And when they take one look at us and say, you cost more than anybody else on the planet, I'm going to go somewhere else. So, net zero may be good for the future, but let's not put all our eggs in that basket for today. I hope you've enjoyed the video. Please do like the video if you did, subscribe to see more, and guys, have a great rest of your day. Bye bye.